I'm not the kind of man who sits back and watches everything crumble without trying to do something about it. So, when I started noticing changes in my wife's behavior, I didn't waste any time. I asked her straight out why she'd grown so distant, why she avoided talking to me, touching me, or even being close to me. It was like she couldn't stand my presence anymore. At first, getting her to talk was like pulling teeth, but eventually, she opened up. What she said hit me like a freight train. She told me she didn't feel I was enough for her. According to her, she was shouldering all the responsibilities, making decisions, managing the kids, and keeping everything together, while I just stood by. She even hinted that she might be better off alone. Hearing those words left me reeling. I didn't want to argue, though. I love her more than anything. So I swallowed my pride and told her I understood how she felt. I promised to make changes, to step up so she wouldn't feel so overwhelmed. All I wanted was to fix things, to make her happy because, in my eyes, she's my whole world. But let me tell you, it's not easy. I do everything I can, but late at night, when it's just me and my thoughts, I can't shake this feeling that her accusations don't add up. That's what led me to this group. I needed someone to talk to about it because, honestly, from where I stand, I'm not the man she's painting me to be. I see myself as a decent husband, someone who does his fair share. I work a 10-hour day from home, and when I'm off the clock, I dive straight into parenting. I play with my boys, make their meals, take the older one to swim class, and read them bedtime stories. I'm even the one who gets up in the middle of the night when they need something. On top of that, I pitch in with housework, doing the dishes, picking up groceries, tidying up. Sure, my wife thinks I'm not as quick or thorough as she'd like, so she takes over a lot. But I also handle the car maintenance and everything else that comes with owning a new home. I'm doing my best to lighten her load because I know life with 2 young kids is no joke. But I'm not the kind of guy who's constantly on the move, looking for the next task to tackle. My father-in-law is that way, always buzzing around fixing things, planning, working. Me? I have my own rhythm. When the day's work is done, the kids are asleep, and the house is in decent shape, I just want to relax. A good movie or some video games is my way of unwinding. I've never been someone who dreams of starting a business or chasing after mountains of money. I take pride in doing my job well, and I'm okay with that. I'm just a regular guy. People say I'm good-looking, who wants a peaceful life with a happy family. Nothing flashy, nothing over the top. But lately, it feels like that's not enough for her. She's been critical of my approach, even though we've had years of what I thought was a happy marriage. Things hit a boiling point back in December. I started pushing myself to be someone I'm not, doing extra chores, tackling house projects, and sacrificing my evenings just to win her approval. But no matter what I did, her attitude didn't shift. Finally, I worked up the nerve to ask her point blank if she even wanted to save our marriage. Her response? I don't know. Can you believe that? Was she truly unsure? Or was this her way of saying she didn't care? I wasn't about to let it go. I pressed her, asking if she'd consider marriage counseling. And again, she hit me with the same infuriating answer. I don't know. That was the last straw. I told her this kind of uncertainty wasn't acceptable, not when our kids' future was on the line. They deserved better than parents who couldn't make up their minds. Eventually, after a lot of back and forth, she agreed to therapy. But, of course, she left it all to me. Finding a therapist and setting everything up? That was on my shoulders. In one of our counseling sessions, my wife dropped a bombshell that cut deep. She admitted she only married me to meet her family's expectations, to project this image of a perfect, happy life with beautiful kids. She confessed she was never truly in love with me, just infatuated with the idea of marriage itself. As if that wasn't enough, I later found out she'd been meeting with her priest to discuss our marriage, behind my back. That felt like a slap in the face, a betrayal I didn't see coming. Even so, I pushed through the pain and found us a good therapist. We're 3 sessions in now, but it's been far from easy. Turns out, we speak 2 very different love languages. I thrive on physical touch, while she focuses on getting things done. That disconnect has made things all the more challenging. And the lack of physical affection? It's still there. Not a single hug, no holding hands, nothing since we started therapy. When the therapist found out we hadn't been sharing the same bedroom for over 6 months, she didn't hold back. My wife claimed it was because she sleeps with the kids and there's no room for me. But the therapist pointed out how damaging that was for our kids, seeing their dad shut out of the bedroom like that. She suggested something as simple as buying a single bed to put next to the main one. So, I did it. I bought the bed, set it up, and now that's where I sleep. But it hasn't changed a thing. My wife stays on the far left with the boys in the middle, leaving me isolated on the right. It feels like a physical reminder of how disconnected we are. To make things worse, my wife keeps changing her story. Now she's saying she was just overwhelmed, stuck at home with the kids, and that's why she said those hurtful things. But I can't imagine saying anything that cruel to her, no matter how stressed or emotional I might be. She's back at work now, and we've hired a nanny to help with the kids. The only noticeable difference is that we're talking more. But here's the thing. I'm her husband, not just some buddy to chat with. There's still no real closeness between us, no signs of improvement. If anything, I'm the only one putting in effort for our counseling sessions. I've been the one scheduling them and making sure we actually go. And then there's the issue my friends brought up. They started hinting that my wife might be cheating on me. At first, I brushed it off like some wild conspiracy straight out of a movie. The idea seemed ridiculous, completely out of character for her. But today, reality hit me like a ton of bricks. And you won't believe how simple it was to uncover the truth. I bought a voice-activated recorder and slipped it into our car. Nothing fancy, just a basic recorder. 3 days later, when she used the car for work and the gym, I got my answer. She was on the phone with him, not once, but twice. I'm not sure who initiated the calls, but I heard every word of their video conversations. And let me tell you, they weren't just catching up. They were talking about personal, intimate stuff, the kind of conversations she and I used to have back when we first fell for each other. Inside jokes, flirty remarks, all of it. It's been so long since she and I had that kind of connection. And to top it off, they were planning a vacation together. She even mentioned visiting him in July. That's not all. She gave him an 18 months timeline to move back here. The way they spoke about their future left no room for doubt. She told him she planned to leave me and become his wife. They even discussed intimate details, things I can't unhear. It's all on that recording. Over an hour of undeniable proof. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I've already lined up a meeting with an attorney next week. If it weren't for my friend's suggestion, I'd never have thought to buy that recorder. Some might say I crossed a line, invading her privacy like that, but I don't feel the least bit guilty. I did what I had to do, and I stand by it. What really haunts me is thinking about our kids and the mess she's dragged them into. It turns out this affair has been going on since last September, and it took me 2 months to pick up on the changes in her behavior. Next week, I'll be out of town, taking care of my father in another city. That means she'll be working from my home office instead of going into work. And you know what that probably means? More conversations with him, this time in my own space. So, should I set up the recorder in my office next week? Or do you think I already have enough evidence to move forward? I kept debating this when something completely unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, my wife made several attempts to call her ex-boyfriend. Not once, not twice, but 4 times in a row, late at night around 10 p.m. I only found out because we still had this old app installed that synced our numbers, letting me see incoming and outgoing calls. Why would my wife, who had never mentioned her ex in 9 years of marriage, suddenly be blowing up his phone? The thought alone made my blood boil. I couldn't just let it slide. I decided to check her iMessages on her laptop. Sure enough, after all those unanswered calls, she'd sent him a message that read, "I'm not giving up until you actually answer and communicate with me in a respectful and civilized manner." I stared at the screen, stunned. What kind of respectful and civilized conversation was she trying to have with her ex at this hour? I couldn't let it go unanswered. When I confronted her about it, she flat out denied it. But I had the app and her call logs as proof, right there on my phone. She had no escape. Cornered, she admitted she tried to reach him. I pressed further, asking why she'd called him so many times and if she'd texted him afterward. At first, she denied sending any messages. But when I showed her the text, she launched into a rambling explanation. She claimed he'd called her earlier while drunk, saying a bunch of nonsense, so she told him off and hung up. Then, out of guilt, She tried calling him back multiple times and sent the message. But here's the kicker. He never responded. Not a call, not a text, nothing. Her explanation sounded sketchy at best. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it, especially since all of this happened right around the time she started pulling away from me emotionally. To her, it wasn't a big deal. She said it didn't mean anything and didn't see why she should have told me. But to me, any contact with an ex, especially one she'd never mentioned before, is a massive red flag. It's unacceptable, plain and simple. The timing made it all the worse. For the past 6 months, there's been no closeness between us, and now I discover she's been reaching out to an old flame? But here's the twist. While going through her messages, I stumbled across something else, something I wasn't prepared for. She wasn't just planning to leave me for her ex. No, this was bigger than that. I found an email draft on her laptop addressed to a man named Todd, someone I'd never even heard of. The email described a plan to use me as leverage to fund her new life. She wrote about how she'd push me to finalize the house construction, knowing full well she'd be taking it over once I was out of the picture. Todd, it turns out, isn't her ex-boyfriend. He's her current fling, someone she's been seeing on the side while stringing her ex along as a backup plan. It was like a game of chess, and I was just another pawn in her strategy. She mentioned introducing Todd to the kids when the time feels right, and asking for his patience while she handled me and the divorce. I couldn't believe it. Not only was she betraying me with multiple men, but she was also scheming to take everything I'd worked so hard for, our home, our stability, and build a new life on the ruins of our marriage. None of her family or friends know about any of this. To them, we're just a couple going through a rough patch. She comes from a devout Catholic family with 3 sisters, attends church every Sunday, and plays the role of the perfect wife and mother in our small town of 135,000 people. But the truth? The truth is uglier than anything I could have imagined. I've already hired an attorney and started putting together a game plan. I have enough evidence to blow up her facade, but my lawyer advised against going scorched earth. As much as I want to expose her, I have to think about the long-term impact on our kids. They're young and need their mother, even if she's not the person I thought she was. Selling the house isn't an option either. The kids need a stable home, and our current arrangement with her dad's place is just temporary. So, for now, I'm biding my time, planning my next move. Update. I'll be heading out of town next week to take care of my father. That means she'll be using my home office while I'm away. And given what I've learned, I'm sure she'll take full advantage of the opportunity. This time, I'm not just leaving a recorder. I'm setting up a hidden camera. If she wants to bring her lies into my home, she's going to have to answer for it. Life here in the Austria has been surreal lately, and not in a good way. After my conversation with the lawyer, he sent the divorce papers, set to arrive right after Easter. The documents included an invitation to mediation, aimed at dividing our assets civilly and making the divorce as amicable as possible. Yesterday, I had a rare day off from work, so I spent it looking after my 1-year-old son while my wife was at her job in the capital city, 45 minutes away. In the meantime, my brother came over to help me pack up my belongings from the apartment. We loaded everything into his car, and just as the chaos was settling, the postman arrived with the divorce papers. The papers confirmed what I already knew. She's in a relationship with the affair partner. His full name was listed as the reason for the divorce. It stung, but at least now I had something concrete to use as leverage when it came to child support and other negotiations. When she came home, I didn't waste time. I confronted her, told her I knew everything, and handed her the divorce papers. I insisted she contact my lawyer and made it clear how deeply hurt I was. Then, without waiting for her response, I left to speak with her parents. She, of course, started denying everything. She kept asking how I found out and what proof I had. Her parents were shocked, but they believed me. Following my lawyer's advice, I recorded the conversation, which started with me asking her parents if they thought I'd been a good husband and father. When they affirmed that I had, it was a small victory. I knew she couldn't use them against me in court. Her parents were heartbroken but understanding. They even acknowledged the severity of her actions and the impact it had on our family. I thanked them for their support and left for the capital city. While on the way, I called a close friend and asked him to discreetly share the news with her circle of friends. An hour later, my brother-in-law called me, filling me in on how she had admitted to the affair, but conveniently left out the more intimate details. Typical. He also reassured me that everyone was on my side and that she'd single-handedly torn apart what we once had. But then he pulled a curveball, saying, "You know, this can all be fixed. My wife forgave me when I cheated, and now we're better than ever." I couldn't help but laugh. Did he really think that would make me feel better? And then came the cherry on top of this absurd cake. Her father called. He started by ranting about how it was all her fault, how clueless she was about the destruction she'd caused, and how the affair partner would never set foot in his house again. He even said he was cutting off any financial support for her. Then, in the same breath, he said he thought the marriage could still be saved. Seriously? Her sister followed up with a text, saying she was fully on my side, but also thought the relationship could be salvaged. It was infuriating. How could they all be so delusional? Did they think waving a magic wand would fix this disaster? But here's where things took a wild turn. Amid all the chaos, I got an anonymous email. The sender claimed to be someone close to the affair partner. Attached were several photos and videos showing my wife with him, not just casual moments, but intimate ones. The timestamp? 10 days ago. The location? Our unfinished house. I was speechless. She had brought him into the very space we were supposed to build our future in. That house was meant to be a symbol of stability for our kids, and now it felt tainted. That wasn't the end of it. The email also included a single chilling sentence. "She's not just using you. She's using him too." Apparently, she had been stringing the affair partner along as well, promising him a future while simultaneously keeping her options open with yet another man. It made me sick to my stomach. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was a pattern of manipulation and selfishness that knew no bounds. I met with my lawyer again, showing him the new evidence. He advised me to keep everything close to my chest for now, using it strategically during mediation. Meanwhile, my wife started sending me a flood of messages. She apologized profusely, claiming she hadn't realized the damage she was doing, begging for a second chance, and saying life would be unbearable without me. She even painted this rosy picture of us reuniting with the kids, acting as if none of this had ever happened. But now, with everything I've uncovered, her apologies feel like nothing more than damage control. The worst part? I can't shake the feeling that there's still more to this story, something even bigger lurking just beneath the surface. To me, her apologies and tears are nothing more than noise, empty words wrapped in a desperate attempt to shift the blame. My lawyer finalized the divorce terms I want, and now it's just a waiting game until her lawyer responds. Meanwhile, my phone's been blowing up with texts from my mother-in-law. She's flooding me with Christian links about forgiveness, claiming my wife's behavior is due to possession by an evil spirit. If that wasn't absurd enough, her sister chimed in to blame me, accusing me of being selfish and the one responsible for ruining the marriage. And now, my wife's waterworks are in full swing. She's teary-eyed, wishing she could turn back time. Suddenly, I'm the villain, the selfish guy tearing apart the family by pursuing a divorce. It's like they've all flipped the script, pinning the entire mess on me. For a moment today, I'll admit, they almost got to me. A sliver of guilt crept in, as if I really was the bad guy here. But then I shook it off. I didn't create this mess. I'm just the one cleaning it up. The truth is, I'm resolute. No matter what guilt trips or blame games come my way, the divorce is happening. It's not ideal, especially when it comes to the kids. Here in the Austria, young kids almost always stay with their mother after a divorce. Living an hour away from their nursery and kindergarten means a 50-50 custody split isn't feasible. I'll be the every other weekend dad, with some extra time when I can manage it. It's heartbreaking, but it's the reality. Lately, I've been toying with a ridiculous idea, one I'll probably never go through with but can't seem to shake. What if I propose terms to stay together for the kids? Not a real marriage, but a partnership of convenience. Separate finances, no intimacy, just co-parents under one roof. She'd have to move to the capital city, and I'd set strict conditions. GPS tracking on her car, daily checks of her phone. In return, I'd reserve the right to go on dates with other women. Maybe even cheat, no strings attached. Crazy, right? I don't even know why I'm entertaining it. I guess it's because I'm tired of being painted as the guy who abandoned his kids. But deep down, I know it wouldn't work. The damage is too deep, and I can't imagine living like that. Update. For now, I'm camped out at my parents' place. The living room couch is my bed, the dining table is my makeshift office, and my clothes are scattered everywhere like I'm back in college. I work 10 hours a day from home, then help my elderly parents, ages 75 and 68, with errands, groceries, and doctor visits. To keep from spiraling, I've been hitting the gym and catching movies at the cinema. I get to see my boys every weekend. My ex drops them off, and I drive them back. At least I don't have to question their paternity. I took a test just to be sure, and they're mine. That clarity is one small relief in all this chaos. The divorce negotiations, though? They're a complete mess. I'm asking for enough money to start over, but she's only offering a third of what I requested, citing the amount I contributed to the house as her justification. She's agreed to take over the mortgage, but it's clear she's struggling. From what I've heard, she might be forced to sell the house after all. Frankly, she should have done that from the start instead of clinging to it as some kind of trophy. Child support is another battlefield. She's asking for far more than what's reasonable, and we're still at a standstill. On top of that, she insists I should be the one driving to the small town every weekend to pick up the kids and bring them back. In my opinion, she should drop them off, and I'll handle the return. She created this mess. It's only fair. But here's the twist. While digging through some old files on my laptop, I stumbled across an encrypted folder I'd forgotten about. It turns out, during the early years of our marriage, my wife had saved emails she'd written but never sent. Most of them were drafts addressed to her ex-boyfriend. One draft, in particular, stopped me cold. It read, "I'm sorry for marrying him. I should have waited for you. If you're still willing, I'll find a way to make this work. Just give me time." The timestamp? A week before our wedding. That folder sat there for years, hidden in plain sight, while I was oblivious to what was really going on. It's like a window into a part of her I never knew existed, or maybe refused to see. This isn't just about the affair or the divorce anymore. It's about realizing how much of my life was built on lies. And now I'm left wondering, how much of her love, her commitment, was ever real? It's a bitter pill to swallow, but one thing's certain. I can't go back, not after everything I've uncovered. It's frustrating, beyond frustrating. My wife has been trying to convince me she's filled with regret, claiming she's ended things with the affair partner, sought an exorcist, confessed everything to her priest, and left it all in God's hands. I couldn't help but laugh when she told me that. I told her she could confess to every priest in the country, but it wouldn't mean a thing until she confessed to me. So, I gave her one last chance to come clean. I asked her to tell me, honestly, how many times she had been with him. She denied everything, of course. That's when I brought up the October party with her work friends, specifically, why she rented an Airbnb instead of crashing at a friend's place. She froze, like a deer caught in headlights, and then had the audacity to ask why I kept torturing myself with these questions. I laid it out for her. If she truly felt remorseful, she wouldn't keep lying. It's been 3 months since I left, and the dishonesty is still there. I told her intimacy over video chat is just as significant as being physically close, and I know she had both with him. She couldn't even keep track of how many times they'd been together. Then I asked her how she imagined we could ever rebuild trust. How could she start a conversation with me and lie in the very next breath? I also pointed out that if we were to stay together, I'd be checking her phone every day. What did she think about that? She snapped back, saying, "That's not trust. That's treating me like garbage." Right then, our son walked into the room, and the conversation had to wind down. Before she left, I said one last thing. "Don't forget, it's not just me you cheated on. It's also our 2 boys you betrayed." That hit her hard. She started yelling, telling me not to say things like that in front of the kids. Irony doesn't even begin to cover it. Her sister later told me how my wife has been putting on a show, crying every day in front of her family and playing the victim. She's two-faced, acting devastated for her parents while lying straight to my face. And the gall of it all? She even said she could still be with the affair partner if she wanted, and her family wouldn't do a thing about it. Like I should be grateful she's choosing not to be with him. Unbelievable. Update. The lawyers have finally reached an agreement, and the divorce will be finalized soon. She's keeping the unfinished house and taking full responsibility for the mortgage. To be clear, the house is for the kids. I want them to have a stable place to grow up. But I'll say it now. I don't want anyone accusing me of giving it up out of revenge. I have no desire to live in her small hometown and 45 minutes away from the capital city where I am now. At least I'm getting back the money I invested in the house. It's a decent sum and will help me start over. The child support terms are reasonable, and we agreed she'll drop the kids off at my place every other weekend, and I'll drive them back afterward. But seeing my boys only on weekends? It's not enough. It tears me apart, thinking about my 2- and 4-year-old sons growing up without their father present every day. I'll need to figure something out, maybe start driving to their town midweek or find another way to stay connected. As for her, she's still trying to win me back. She keeps texting me, saying she loves me and wishes she could undo the past. She's even softened to the point of agreeing to let me check her phone whenever I want, claiming it wouldn't bother her anymore. She apologized to my parents and acts like she's willing to do whatever it takes to fix things. But here's the kicker. Her affair partner dumped her. Can you believe that? The guy, who, by the way, has a whole family with a kid in Munich, didn't want to risk getting caught up in the mess she created. Turns out, she was nothing more than a game to him. He played her like a fiddle and walked away without a scratch. The twist doesn't surprise me anymore. It's just another chapter in the train wreck of this saga. As for me, I'm moving forward. I won't let her toxic behavior drag me down. The divorce is happening, and there's no turning back. Good riddance to her. I've got better things to focus on, a brighter future and a fresh start that I'm ready to embrace. Life goes on, and I'm not wasting another second looking back at the disaster she left behind. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel